Good morning. My name is Coburn. I am pursuing my master's right now at Yale University in piano performance, and the paper which I'm giving today is called Analyzing the Non-Tonal Language of Scriabin's Middle Period Works, a New Approach. So what I'm talking about today are Scriabin's Opus 51, which is 4 pieces, that's the name of it, Opus 52, 3 pieces, and Opus 53, which is the 5th piano sonata. And I am trying to find, well, I'm presenting my results from a study which is trying to find a useful way of understanding the harmonic language of this music. I started to play the 5th sonata in September, and I pretty quickly found some analytical questions which I couldn't get answers to from the performance department, from my teacher here, or from people in the theory department. And as I started reading the important works on this topic, I couldn't really find answers from a performer's perspective. There was lots of stuff that I found, but it didn't really tell me how is the harmony working, what can I expect the harmony to be doing, when is the harmony doing something which is unusual, and so on. And so I started analyzing it myself, and it's evolved into this. So far I've analyzed mostly the harmony, and this is an ongoing study project for me, so I'm going to expand that to include other elements in the future, but for now we're dealing mostly with the harmony. I have notated chords using jazz notation because most of the sonorities here are dominant sevenths. There are some other things, particularly more in the sonata, but most of them are dominant sevenths with upper extensions. So for example, B flat, sharp 11, flat 13, or something like that, which would be a B flat 7 chord, B flat, D, and A flat, with or without the F, and then the sharp 11th would be E, and flat 13th would be G flat. And I would write all those things, and I wouldn't just write B flat, flat 13, because I want to be as specific as possible. Now, Scriabin very often is setting up these sonorities. As a matter of fact, far more often than not, he's setting up these sonorities so that the root is on the bottom, and then the 7th and 3rd, in one order or another, are above it. In the example I'm going to play, which is from Opus 51, number 4, the root is always on the bottom, then the 7th, and then the 3rd. And all of these chords I'm going to play until the very last chord, which has the root, the 5th, and the 3rd. Pieces of Opus 51 and Opus 52 are all short character pieces between 12 and 69 measures, and in 5 out of 7 cases they have rhythmic and textural elements which are set up at the beginning and go straight through to the end almost without deviation, which makes the harmony very easy to study because it's one of the more prominent elements, some of the other elements being very consistent over the course. So now we're going to talk about the harmonic language itself. I have identified 6 categories of relationships between chords. There are short distance relationships, and there are 3 of those, and there are long distance relationships, and 3 of them as well. To begin with the short distance relationships, the first one we have is what I'm calling tritone alternation. So this is chords which are usually dominant 7th chords, and their roots are a tritone apart. So for example, we could have a D chord, and an A flat chord, and you'll notice that the upper 2 notes stay the same, and they'll move back and forth freely. So if I play you this section from Opus 51, number 3, it is comprised of C7 chords with upper extensions and F7 chords with upper extension chords, alternating for a long period of time. The second type of motion that I have in the short distance category is traditional dominant to tonic motion. Now, this doesn't happen in the context of a harmonic cycle. It usually is just a 5-1. It doesn't even have to be a dominant seventh sonority to something else. It could be sometimes a minor sonority to a major sonority, so we have sometimes a 2-5, but overwhelmingly it's a dominant seventh sonority to something else, either another dominant seventh sonority or probably a major chord, because those are more prevalent than minor chords in this music. We have occasional, what we could consider a 2-5-1 progression, but we never have what we would consider a 1-2-5 progression. A 1-2-5-1 progression, so we never have a full cycle. The last category, which is not very important in this music, but will become much more important in later music, is chords which are descending or related because they're moving by third, either down or up. So in the example that we have here, we have first a C sharp chord, and then we've got an A chord, and then we've got an F chord. And I'll play this section here. This is from Opus 52, number 3. Short passage here, and it doesn't assume, as I said, that much importance until later. I happen to know, because I've played the 9th sonata, that by that point this sort of motion is happening all over the place, but I haven't had time right now to study when or exactly how that becomes important. Now we come to the 3 categories of long distance motion, and I will explain them first and then give you an example, because there's one other concept that I have to explain as well. The first of these is similar placement within a sequence. Now, each of the 8 pieces that I've studied has at least one sequence, and several of the pieces have several sequences in them. Some of them are sequences which can be explained other ways, and sometimes the harmonic motion throughout the sequence can't be explained by any way other than that in the first section of the sequence we have some chords, and we have the same thing happening in the second section of the sequence, the second statement. So the chords at the end of each statement, for example, we say are related. The harmony comes in here, and then this is related to this, and this one continues the harmonic motion. We also have long-distance dominant to tonic motion, and the third category is what I'm calling harmonic equivalence at structurally significant moments. And by that I mean we have the same chord, or sometimes a chord which is related by tritone, such as the first category that I mentioned, and there are moments which are receiving particular attention, like the beginning and ending of a phrase, could be the beginning of a section, it could be a moment which has a large Gothic accent, but one way or another there is significance at this moment and significance at this moment, and they're connected this way. And now the reason that this is important is that though this is not a new phenomenon, there occur a high number of cases in this repertoire in which adjacent chords have no formal relationship to each other at all. In these cases, the harmonic continuity is maintained by one of the types of long-distance motion. Long-distance motion can serve, like this, to bridge harmonic discontinuities, or it can also be a second way of explaining how we got from one way to another. It can be everything harmonically continuous throughout, but also have dominant to tonic motion at structurally significant points, in which case it's not so important. An example here comes from Opus 51, number 1. The F flat chord at the beginning is related to the B flat chord by tritone alternation. Now I've indicated a harmonic discontinuity here, which is not actually the case quite. This is actually an artistic consideration because the first line consists of 2 phrases, each the same, and I want to show the F flat chords moving to the B flat chords, which I've done with the arrow between the 2 B flat chords. However, I could have just as easily included an equal sign between measures 2 and 3. The B flat chord at the end of the first line moves to the A flat chord at the beginning of the second line by deceptive motion. So this is related to the dominant to tonic motion. We occasionally have deceptive type of motion. It's not that common, but it happens in this case. Then we have a harmonic discontinuity. and the F chords which follow are related only to the B flat chord by dominant to tonic motion. And now the important part of this is that the first chord, the F flat chord, is related to the last chord, the B flat chord, by equivalence of structurally significant moment. In this case, it's tritone alternation. That's what maintains the harmonic continuity in between the beginning and the ending of this phrase, and I'll play it now. So, these are the three types of long distance motion that we have.